The views and opinions expressed on Wrestling Winedown are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. What's up, guys? It's Lo, and you are tuned in to Wrestling Winedown, a female-founded and hosted podcast dedicated to professional wrestling and our favorite adult beverage. 2021 has been quite the year for World Wrestling Entertainment, and we are here to spill the wine on it all. Welcome to another episode of Chardonnay and Chisme, where I am joined by Iridian Fierro of the Wrestfriends Podcast for some good old wrestling girl talk. Get your glass of wine ready. We are talking about the best and worst moments in WWE this year, including the mass release of 80 plus talent, as well as the lack of accountability that we have seen from this company, as well as other wrestling companies when it comes to the wrestlers that they employ. We also saw some interesting changes within WWE this year, including the rebirth of NXT to NXT 2.0, as well as the end of the WWE Network, with WWE moving all of their content to the streaming platform Peacock. We also saw the cancellation of Total Divas and Total Bellas, two e-reality TV shows that helped a lot of female fans become wrestling fans in the first place. We also saw some magical moments in the WWE this year, including Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, two black women main eventing night one of Wrestlemania, as well as Big E finally getting that big championship run after successfully cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase. And of course, it would not be a year-end episode without us vocalizing what we would like to see from WWE in 2022. So grab your glass of wine. We're going in for the 3 count. We are back with another episode of Chardonnay and Chisme, and this is our year-end episode. This is exciting. 2021 has been such an interesting year within World Wrestling Entertainment, and I think a lot of people have had a little bit of a negative view on WWE this year. As we know, last year we had the Thunderdome, where fans could sign up online and watch WWE programming, and it was like they were in the audience. People liked it for the most part, and then we saw live crowds phase back in earlier this year at WrestleMania, which was a huge deal, and now we are back to normal, ? We have fans at all events for WWE. I've seen a couple where they do ask that fans be vaccinated, but for the most part, it's you don't have to be vaccinated. You don't have to go get a test, but you do have to wear a mask while you're there. Do people really follow that? I'll leave that to your imagination. But Iridian, it's the end of the year.
I know. It's just so much has happened, and it's hard to remember it all because a lot of things that were terrible, you just kind of block out, right? So it's like, you put it in the back of your head, but you're like, it still happened. And what can we hope for next year? Let's hope that, for me, I would hope that there's no more releases because there were so many releases this year, right?
Right. So we're diving in. We're going to start the episode with the negative and then we're going to get into the more positive stuff and what we want to see out of WWE in the next year. So a lot of people know WWE released a handful, more than a handful of talent this year due to quote unquote budget cuts. And I have the full list here. I'm going to read it off. Thank you to Denise Salcido, who posted the list, so we have it all in one place. So 2021 WWE releases included Bobby Fish, Mercedes Martinez, Leon Ruff, Tyler Rust, Bronson Reed, Jake Atlas, Ari Sterling, Kona Reeves, Zachariah Smith, Asher Hale, Giant Sangier, Stephen Smith, Desmond Troy, Bray Wyatt, Chase Parker, Matt Martell, Killian Dane, Marina Shafir, Arturo Ruas, Kurt Stallion, Sunil Singh, Samir Singh, Lars Sullivan, Steve Cutler, Andrade, Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, Samoa Joe, Kalisto, Chelsea Green, Mickey James, Tucker, Bo Dallas, Mojo Raleigh, Wesley Blake, Jessamine Duke, Kavita Devi, Vanessa Bourne, Skylar Story, Ezra Judge, Alexander Wolf, Velveteen Dream, Braun Strowman, Lana, Buddy Murphy, Alistair Black, Ruby Riott, August Gray, Araya Davari, Tony Nese, Tyler Breeze, Fandango, Santana Garrett, Tino Sabatelli, Nia Jax, Eva Marie, Mia Yim, Harry Smith, Keith Lee, Karrion Kross, Lindsay Dorado, Graham Metalik, Jeet Rama, Katrina Cortez, Trey Baxter, Zeta Ramir, Jessie Kamea, B-Fab, Oni Lorcan, Ember Moon, Frankie Monet, Scarlett Bardot, John Morrison, Top Dollar, Ashante Adonis, Isaiah Swerve Scott, Tegan Knox, Drake Maverick, Shane Thorne, and Jackson Riker. Ugh. We are not going to get in depth with this list. This is a huge list of a lot of talented people, but I want to ask you, who were some of the names or people that you saw that were released and it almost didn't seem real to you? Like you were just so shocked to see that they were no longer a WWE superstar.
Definitely one of the names that stood out for me was Andrade. And this was so crazy to me because we had heard rumors that he was asking for his release, but they just were not, granting it. So for him to all of a sudden, they were like, oh, okay, well, you can go. But it's like, well, why did you keep him for that little while? Why didn't you just let him go? Like that was a waste of time. Lana, our girl, like she was working her butt off. She recreated her character. I don't know how many times. She was a team player. And I feel like, again, underutilized. There's so many people in WWE who we see a little glimpse and we know what they can be, but WWE just never really gives us that. Same thing with Aleister Black. And that was a crazy situation because they were in negotiations like as a couple, him and Zelina. And when Zelina, confirmed her contract, they announced that Aleister was let go, which blew my mind because you're like, why would you only sign one and not keep the other? But they were doing a lot of weird things with Aleister too. So that was just crazy. But Keith Lee they definitely dropped the ball on this. Like
fumbled the bag tremendously.
How you made history with this man and you bring him up to the main roster for what? Like the same thing happened with Hit Row. For what? Like there could have been so many things. But what are your thoughts on Keith? I know you feel a certain type of way.
I have a lot of thoughts about a couple people on this list, but I'll start with Keith Lee. So I think Keith Lee had that star power. He had that charisma that would have done so well on a main roster, whether it was Raw or SmackDown. And due to him getting sick and stuff like that, I feel like they took that opportunity from him. Even though he successfully showcased his skills within NXT, I felt like they didn't think that he had that star power when it came to him being on either Monday or Friday nights. And I know that obviously the management is different from NXT to, Raw or SmackDown, but his whole thing when he came back, like I went back and I watched the interview that he had with Ryan Satin where he said that Vince was satisfied with his character, so he was good with it. And this is a man who was known as he was limitless. And I feel like you didn't have to rebrand him as another person, and they were paying homage to another wrestler when they gave him his new nickname. But I feel like Keith Lee didn't need that. Keith Lee was effortless in what he was already doing and he was succeeding. So I didn't get the repackaging. I know they wanted to turn him into a heel. It just didn't make any sense. And his release really shocked me. He could have been a world champion on that main roster. And I'm not sure, where the disconnect was or anything like that. But you know what? That's WWE's loss. They didn't see his potential while he was there. And, another company is going to see that potential one day. Looking at the rest of this list, I think we kind of need to talk about NXT's rebrand. NXT is going through this whole 2.0 where they're bringing in younger talent. They're out with the old, literally, and in with these new talent. And a lot of people feel some type of way about it. A lot of people just are rolling with it. But a lot of these names on the list, like Bobby Fish, Mercedes Martinez, you have these older superstars who WWE was kind of like, okay, well, we're just going to let them go. But they have experience. That's the thing. I understand that NXT wants to rebrand. They want to be youthful and stuff like that. But you're telling me that you could not find a place on your roster for Mercedes Martinez and Mia Yim. These are two women that I remember reading about in Pro Wrestling Illustrated when I was 10 or 11 and wondering, who are these women? Because they weren't just a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. They stood out. They were different. And when they had the opportunity to sign with WWE and they were on the roster, it made me excited that they finally had the opportunity to be on one of the top platforms in wrestling. And now they're gone. They were in this group, Retribution, for however long. They didn't wrestle under their name. They wore masks. Like, it's honestly offensive. As fans of both of them, it's very sad and it's offensive that they fumbled the bag so badly with these two. But I also look at this list and I see people that are young, like Leon Ruff, Hit Row. I don't know what is going on at the World Wrestling Entertainment headquarters, but we are hiking or driving or flying or rowing. We're going somewhere to the fucking Titan Towers, and we're going to ask them about this list because there's just so many talented people, and there are some people on here who should have been released a long time ago. Velveteen Dream, Jackson Riker, and Lars Sullivan. I don't know how they made it past some of these other releases because they should have been gone a long time ago. And I'm not saying like I'm here for people losing their job, but it's up that Jackson Riker was on the roster. I don't know if he changed his phone number, so Nick Khan didn't have his phone number, so he couldn't release him or what. But you have all these other talented people who are being released, and Jackson Riker is holding a spot on the roster. Make it make sense. What's not clicking, Steven? If y'all watch TikTok, you know the reference.
It's just crazy. And some of these people got released twice. Drake Maverick. I cannot believe that I had to watch 2 videos of this man. Tears because he lost his job.
I honestly think
storyline the first time.
It is so up when you go back and you realize that they released him and brought him back as a storyline of him getting a second opportunity at having his job during a global pandemic where people were losing their jobs left and right. Someone in that writer's room thought this would be a great idea to have this man cry on social media and let's give him the opportunity to earn his job back. And then we're actually going to fire him a year later and we're probably not going to rehire him. Like, I've said this for so long. I am a WWE fan, but they never read the room. They never. I mean, they could hire me at this point and I'd read the whole room for them, but they haven't done that. It is so important to think about the image that you're portraying. That image that they portrayed with Drake Maverick was not it. Yeah. Small Joe was another one they fired and then they brought back. It's like, why are you putting these people through this emotional turmoil of losing their job? And not only a job, a lot of these people have dreamed of being a WWE superstar and they finally get the opportunity and then you fire them and then you bring them back.
And for what? What was it all for? Because at the end of the day, you don't look good. The people that got released, some of them had a lot of words, you know. Let's talk about Taya and the way that she just went off on Twitter. You know, to each their own. You can respond to getting fired, however. But these people who were in the company and know how the company works are going to say things on social media. And it's crazy because people like John Morrison, who came back and was an amazing champion, so many championships that he's held, whether it be like tag team, intercontinental, or like WWE. He had a great build up towards WrestleMania with The Miz, and he had a feud with Damian and Bad Bunny. And you just saw this guy's a star. And then after WrestleMania, just kind of nothing happened. And then he got released.
It seems like that has been happening a lot. That's been a very frequent pattern with the people that they've released. There's been a handful of these superstars that they've been on 205 Live, which has been filmed, and they get released one day and their show airs the next day. And they're kind of over here like, well, I filmed this before I lost my job. So if you want to go watch it, you can. It's on Peacock or wherever they show 205 Live. That too is just like, it makes no sense to me. Why would you release someone and then you're airing their match the next day like nothing happened? I look at this list. I see Bray Wyatt. I see Eva Marie. I see people that they hyped up so much, and I will say it and I will die on this hill. Bray Wyatt should have been a larger star than I think they knew how to function with, or they knew how to push to the moon, because they've never dealt with a character like Bray Wyatt. We've seen scary characters within the WWE before. We think about the Boogeyman, or we think about Kane, or even the Undertaker to some extent. But Bray Wyatt brought a new type of horror to the WWE. And I don't think they were prepared skill set wise to figure out how to push him. So he always looked weak in the ring. He was losing to people that he had no business losing to. You know, there were rumors about why he got released or what happened. But at the end of the day, that's not really our business. If it does have anything to do health-wise, but they could have done way more with that. And I'm just shaking my head. Looking at this list is just like, it's overwhelming. And it was overwhelming when the releases were happening every couple months or every couple weeks. It was overwhelming then. So to see a whole list of 80 plus superstars on here who, you know, some of them are extremely talented, some of them are not. It's sad. It really is. And then I see veterans on here like Fandango and, like you mentioned, John Morrison. You have Mickie James, and we know her situation that happened. But then you also look at the list again and you see people who they haven't let losing a job with WWE stop them. You look at Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, they're now part of Impact. Bronson Reed is now part of Impact. He's been seen in New Japan Pro Wrestling. You have Bobby Fish, who's in AEW. A lot of other people on this list. Aleister Black is in AEW now. You have a lot of these superstars who, even though their dream has come to an end in terms of WWE, they haven't let it stop them. And I think that's commendable, because a lot of people, when they lose a dream, they get depressed and they sometimes question their worth. And, you know, some of these superstars, they may have had that privately, but it's commendable as a fan to see them want to continue to entertain and not letting this unfortunate event stop their wrestling career.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there have been a lot of people who have been released who are in way better places right now. The Iconics, definitely. I was very hurt when they let go of Billie Kay. Like, I remember tweeting, like, I will never forgive you for this, WWE. And like, I still hold it in my heart. Like, Billie Kay was such a relatable character. And I feel like she was very spot on and people related to her. They just didn't use her in the ring, which was very unfortunate. Was she the best wrestler? No, but she was a great character and you were there to entertain. It's wrestling entertainment. And I feel like they forget about that a lot of times because they just fumble. They fumble the bag. And I feel like that's going to be the theme of this episode is just them fumbling the bag.
Before we move on with the rest, I do want to spend 1 minute on Hit Row, because I know I mentioned earlier that they fumbled the bag, but I don't think it is understood how terribly they fumbled the bag. So they brought up these superstars, and from what I read, B-Fab had just signed a new contract. B-Fab went first. She was gone first, and I don't like that. And then they released the guys. I obviously don't like that either, but here's the thing. You brought these superstars up to the main roster. You had this woman re-sign her contract. So now she doesn't have to wait the 30 days. She has to wait the 90 days because you moved her to the main roster. And I'm pretty sure the guys probably had the same thing in their contracts. But how do you have someone sign a new contract? You get them excited. And then you're like, you know what? Never mind. We don't have any plans for you. We're actually having budget cuts, even though we just had you sign this new contract. So we wish you the best in your future endeavors. And I feel like, again, they did not read the room. Hit Row was over online. Everyone loved Hit Row. Now, you had a couple of people who compared them to other African-American groups within the WWE in previous times, which honestly just ignorant, because just because they're Black does not mean that they're like Crime Time or Street Profits. Get your shit together.
That always happens with people of color. And I get so irritated. Like any Mexican wrestler that comes up or any Latin wrestler, they're like, oh my God, Eddie Guerrero. And I'm like, why? Why do you have to do that? It makes no sense.
These superstars have potential. They brought something new to the roster. They brought something exciting. It was something that we have not seen before. And I keep saying this with a lot of these superstars that were released. They had something that we had not seen before, or something that we gravitated towards. And WWE didn't see that vision like the fans did, and they were let go. I honestly feel like Hit Row was done the dirtiest out of this group, other than Nia Jax, who said that she was on a mental health break from the WWE and got released. No words for that. Like, I won't even go into that because it's just, that's dirty. It's really dirty. I asked earlier on Twitter, what was the worst moment in WWE in 2021 from our followers? I just wanted to get a peek into what they thought was the worst moment. And you know what a lot of people said? People losing their jobs this year. Sassy Stuffy said all of the talented wrestlers being released. I had a couple other people saying, aside from the mass releases, here are 4 pictures of moments that were just this year, which I agree. Franny Pack 08 said mass release of talent. And then you have someone else, Sass Transit, who said, you mean storyline wise or in general? Because firing dozens of people due to budget cuts while having record profits and during a pandemic will be a hard one to beat. There you go. We had some other ones for a worse moment, which we will go into, but to wrap this up with the releases, I think next year is going to be an interesting year. And I hope that WWE does not release 80 plus people next year and expect us to still be fans of them. You have all of these talented individuals that fans gravitate towards, whether it's a tag team, a singles competitor, and you're just dropping them like it's nothing. So
you and I talked about this when, you and I are going to WrestleMania. And when these releases happened, I remember we had a conversation like, so who are we going to see at WrestleMania? There's not going to be any talent left. And it's very hard to be a fan of WWE when not only did this happen this year, this happened last year too. Like they continue to release wrestlers.
Right.
And it's difficult to be a fan. And I know we're going to be at Mania super excited, but like in the back of my mind, you're just like, dang, I still gave them my money and I'm still supporting. I'm still going to watch it because there are still wrestlers in WWE that I love. And, it's just difficult.
And I definitely agree with you. I think you said it completely straight. Like, it's hard to be a fan sometimes when you think about in the future, like you're going to WrestleMania or you're going to Money in the Bank or something like that. And you wonder, like, will my favorite superstar be here in 6 months? Will they be here in a year? And I feel like as fans, we shouldn't have to think about that. When we were growing up watching these superstars on television, we never had the thought that we would see our favorite superstar on television one day and they would be released the next. And it's not cool. I don't think it's attractive for wrestlers who are just getting started in the industry nowadays. They see people who have had all of this experience within the business go to WWE and they get fired. Like, there's no job stability. And all of these individuals are independent contractors. So at the end of the day, WWE can treat them like this and get away with it because they're technically not even employees.
Yeah. Up and coming wrestlers, I would be scared. When you pick who you're signing with, of course, WWE, like that's a dream job, but stability isn't there anymore. You're not guaranteed to have this job 6 months in, 3 months in, even 2 or 3 weeks in. So with so many changes happening in NXT, now that it's NXT 2.0, and with people being brought up from NXT to the main roster to not be used, there's just no job security. And that's the scary thing.
Before we get into some happier things, I do want to talk about WWE's accountability this year when it comes to superstars on their roster who have been predators. WWE claims that they do investigations and stuff like that, and we see how stuff plays out on Twitter. And like I said, on this list, we do see people that, have been creepy or have been predatory that were released, or they've been racist or sexist, etc. WWE finally released them, but you think about some of the superstars who I won't name that are still on the roster who have had allegations against them, whether it's for sexual assault or communicating with a minor online. And you wonder, like, is WWE going to be accountable when it comes to these individuals? You say that you've investigated, but have you really investigated half of your tag team champions? And honestly, when you really think about it, when it comes to that individual, his push never stopped. His whole allegations came out when he was about to make his main roster debut, and he never had a halt. He continued just succeeding on the roster. And I think as a female fan in 2022, I want to see WWE be more accountable. I think as fans, it would mean more to us, but also to these people who have been victims in situations. I feel like they would respect WWE as a occupation if they're making sure that these individuals that they're holding under contracts are behaving properly and not breaking the law. Sometimes I just shake my head because, like I said, we've seen stuff play out on Twitter. We've seen articles. We've seen superstars tweet stuff themselves. And sometimes I just feel like WWE doesn't hold these superstars accountable. They think, well, maybe we could brush it under the rug, or maybe if we pair them with this person, or maybe if we do this, then everyone will forget about it. And it's like, no, these people have ruined individuals' lives. No one's going to forget about it. They should know that once you post something on the internet, it stays on the internet. Okay. So if I wanted to Google something about these superstars 5 years from now, they're going to be up there, whether it's predatory or not.
Yeah. And it's super easy to find. And it's very upsetting think that WWE just kind of thinks so little of us that they think that we're just not going to hold it against them or not even remember what the situation was, because some people still go and they cheer. And, you know, some people are the casual fan who don't look into social media and it's not super popular in the news that it's reported, you know, but it's common knowledge. I feel like if you are a fan, these things are talked about in the community. And if you choose to keep supporting someone like that, like, I mean, that's on you, right? But the company employs that person. So you are in a way backing them up too.
And I do want to add in there, not being an advocate for WWE or anything like that, but there are other wrestling companies out there that are employing individuals that do have allegations against them. And I feel the same exact way with them. You should not be giving a platform to individuals that if I Google their name, it shows that they've been talking to minors or they've sexually assaulted someone. Why are you giving them a platform to perform, to make money, to be a superstar or a top wrestler when they've victimized someone? And like I said, you could go online, you could search up which superstars I'm talking about or which wrestlers have allegations against them. And honestly, I think that's the best, that people do their research, because there's a lot of companies that are signing people. We talked about this on an episode of Wrestfriends. There's people that are being signed right now that on the exterior, you're thinking, oh my God, this is a great talent. You go and Google them and you see they have speaking out allegations against them. We need to be educated as wrestling fans. We need to figure out who we're supporting, who we're spending our money towards, what companies we're giving our money towards, and think logically about it. Do you really want your money going towards a predator? That's all I have to say. I will jump off my soapbox now. I had to put that in our year-end episode because I feel like it has been a constant reoccurring thing in the wrestling world this year and last year, but especially this year, because I think a lot of promoters and wrestling companies seem to think, well, it happened last year. Maybe we can get away with signing this person and no one will know. No, I have Google. I'm going to go Google the person. And then I'm going to find out that you see these same allegations I did, because you can read, and you still sign them.
I feel like this situation reminds me of like people who don't want to get the vaccine and say they're going to do their own research. I feel like WWE is very much so like I'll do my own research type of company.
Well, honestly, a lot of these companies are. I mean, sorry, AEW, but AEW has done it. There's been other companies doing it. I mean, you have to do your research. In my opinion, I know I'm not a promoter or a wrestling company owner, but I would want someone on my brand. I would rather have someone on my brand who I could mold and teach to be a better wrestler, rather than bringing someone in who is a seasoned wrestler who has 15 speaking out allegations against them. Because at the end of the day, that's going to come back, and then you're going to look like a dumb for signing them to a long extended contract, and they're on TV every week. The wine has been spilled. We are going to move on to some of the best moments of the year. WWE did have some solid moments this year, and hands down, one of the top answers that I got when I asked on Twitter, what was the best moment in WWE this year, was Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks at Wrestlemania, which I think was one of the top moments this year. This is a moment that will go on in history. We had at B. Ray Jones, who set Bianca versus Sasha main eventing night 1 of Wrestlemania. That moment before the bell still gives me chills. Sassy Steffi said hands down Sasha versus Bianca at Wrestlemania night 1. Lily Reynolds says Sasha versus Bianca at Wrestlemania. Get Your Podcast said same, the Boss and EST Mania, as well as Big E winning the title. And we had a handful of others that said Bianca versus Sasha. WWE did not fumble the bag when it came to this main event. I think a lot of us were very hesitant if WWE were finally going to give the opportunity to 2 Black women to finally main event their biggest pay-per-view of the year. And we did not know if they were main eventing until the day before, the day of, very last minute, very WWE fashion, where they let us know if something's happening 2 minutes before. But how did this main event feel for you at WrestleMania? Would you say it was one of the best moments in WWE this year?
Oh, 1,000%. This match, everything about it was beautiful. And we talked about it for weeks before they announced it. We're like, this has to be it. Like, it has to be Bianca and Sasha, and they have to main event, because we will riot if they don't. And
we ride at dawn to Titan Towers.
We are going to head out with, our handwritten letters, the emails sent. I don't know what else we're taking with us.
My meet and greet for a return exchange. Give me my money.
Give me a refund because I don't want it if it's not this. This main event was so beautiful. Like, I still vividly remember, like, the two women just breathing in. Everybody was clapping and cheering, and the tears almost like building in Bianca's eyes, like looking at Sasha, and they were like, yes, this is our moment. And the sound heard around the world of Bianca's hair whipping Sasha and Sasha screaming, I still hear it in my head. And I'm probably not going to forget it. It's something that's so iconic that it's probably one of my favorite women's matches, right next to the first time Lita and Trish main evented Monday Night Raw for the first time for that women's championship. It was just fantastic. And this is something that WWE got right. Afterwards, we won't talk about it, but this specific match, this moment was incredible.
And I definitely agree with you. Obviously, but I had asked Bianca what the week of, if she knew she was main eventing, and she was like, well, I hope so. Like, anywhere we fall in the car, we're the main event. And I was like, preach, sister. But to actually see the main event, it was just such a beautiful match. Like, I was drawn in the entire time. It was so well done. And I'm very glad that WWE did not fumble the bag on this. I think this is a cultural shift in WWE women's wrestling when it comes to women of color, because this was something that had never been done before. 2 Black women, not just 1, 2 in the main event of WrestleMania. And I think WWE could have done a better job at bringing in the Black women of before Bianca and Sasha to really spotlight this moment and show how big of a deal it was. Like, yeah, the promos were good. Yeah, Michael Cole mentioning that they were the first 2 Black women to ever main event WrestleMania is great. But why don't we pay homage to these women that laid the foundation for Bianca and Sasha to even get this platform? Jazz, Jacqueline, Awesome Kong or Karma, Alicia Fox, Shaniqua, Black women who paved the way so that this moment could happen. I feel like if anyone should have been involved here, it should have been Jazz and Jacqueline. Hands down, and Alicia Fox, hands down. But WWE didn't do that. I mean, girl, it's not too late. Do a 2021 year recap, bring in Jazz, bring in Jacqueline, bring in Alicia Fox, bring in those Black women who wrestled before and ask them, how did this make you feel? Seeing that you built this foundation and seeing that these 2 Black women went out there and busted their ass and put on an amazing show. How did it make you feel? But you know what? I don't work for WWE. If I did, this would have been done by now. But that's besides the point. I think I will never forget this. And I wish I could go back to when I first started watching wrestling when I was 10 or 11 and have something like this to watch. I would have been captivated. I think about little girls now who were able to see that. That was their first wrestling event that they went to live, or their first WrestleMania. They had such a great show to watch because of Bianca and Sasha. And honestly, that is the moment in WWE for me this year. Roman Reigns has been tearing it up. He's been Universal Champion for however long, and he's done a great job as a heel. Don't get me wrong, but this moment just stands out to me.
Iconic. I 1,000% agree with you. And how lucky were those little girls? They don't even know what luck is, because for them to have experienced that, great for them, right? Because they have these role models to look up to. And it's so beautiful. Like, I have no words other than what a fantastic moment. And I do hope that they do something maybe in the future, like you mentioned, like bring up all the Black women who came before them, do something special, because this moment is historic. It will forever be remembered, but they need to really remember how big it is and keep that memory like going.
And I do agree with Get Show Podcast. I think Big E winning the title was another big moment this year. It was one that I think consensus online, everyone loved that moment. Seeing Big E finally win that title when we've heard for so long that, oh, he's going to go up against the New Day. He's going to turn heel on them, and then he's going to get the title. But to see that he did not have to do that, first off, and that he did not need to change his character like all of these legends said, and seeing him finally win that title, it meant so much. I've been a fan of Big E for a while now. I watched I think it was his 365 or his 24, whatever they had on Peacock with him. And it made me gain more respect for him because it showed his journey. When he first started with the New Day, they were going to be like a church group. And people were booing them and stuff like that, but they continued until they finally found their groove. And now they're what they are today. And, Big E rode that wave. And he finally got the opportunity to finally have a singles run with one of the top titles in WWE. And that moment was just so good. And I know a lot of people were like, well, it was rushed. It was right at the end of Raw. But I feel like he's had a great reign so far. It's what he deserves at the end of the day. I'm excited to see what's next for him. He's in his element. This is where he needs to be at.
Facts. I agree with you on that. I think people were a little upset that it happened very last minute. Like we kind of knew that he was going to be champion. We just didn't know when they were going to like pull the trigger on it. And we were like, well, it's so last minute. And it was like really the last 20 seconds. And if you missed it, well, you missed it. But he's a champion. Like it happened. And that's what we were all waiting for. So I feel like you can't be mad at that because at the end of the day, it's what we wanted.
Right. And, I think about other cash-ins. Like I know everyone glorifies Seth Rollins and his cash-in at WrestleMania. And people compare Big E's moments to like Seth's moments and like the moments that the women have had. And they feel like, well, his moment wasn't as legendary. But, he's held this title. He's had memorable matches. That match with Roman Reigns really, really showed how passionate he is for that title and that he could go head to head with Roman, which I already knew. He's showing why he's credible with this title. I think a lot of people box him into that, well, he'll always just be that Intercontinental or United States champion, or he'll always just have a tag title. But he said, no, I can go get that main title, and I'm going to show you why I've held it for this long, because I can keep up with the likes of Roman Reigns, who's held his title for, over a year. So put some respect on Big E's name. And you can put respect on King Xavier's name, too. I think that was another top moment this year. Not only did Big E get his moment, but Xavier got his moment as King of the Ring. I think a lot of us were very nervous with WWE that they were going to fumble the bag when it came to King Xavier because that's what the fans wanted. The fans wanted King Xavier. We were like, oh, God, please don't this up. And they didn't. They did a great job with that. And I think a lot of people are starting to like this new King Xavier and the new music, the new gimmick. And the great thing is he's not a heel. As history shows, most King of the Rings turn heel, or they are already a heel when they gain that title. And to see Xavier go against what history usually is and be a face and still be entertaining, I just love it.
It's refreshing.
Good job.
They did a great job with that. I love him as King. I love the fact that he's not a heel because it's just a nice change, Every King, you're just like, oh my God, here we go. King Corbin for the longest time.
King Booker.
Oh my goodness. Just, of course, iconic. King Booker, like the childhood is all King Booker. Like that's what I can think of. But now it'll be King Xavier. So I'm happy about that.
Another moment that happened this year can be categorized as the best moment for some people and as the worst moment for some people. Summerslam 2021. We had what we thought would be a rematch between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair from that main event at WrestleMania that we just talked about. And unfortunately, WWE kept promoting this event, kept promoting it. And there were rumors online floating around that Sasha Banks wouldn't be able to compete at this event. And come to find out, the moment of, we find out that Sasha's not able to compete. So Bianca's in the ring. She's confused. Carmella comes out. We're thinking, we've seen this match already. And for some people, this was the best moment of the year when Becky Lynch returned. We know that she had a baby last year, the end of last year, and she finally returned. People went ape in that arena. Even though they were still disappointed that, the rematch between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair was not occurring. right here in Las Vegas. But I think everyone was excited to see Becky Lynch finally return, and seeing her with Bianca Belair would have been an amazing moment. Just not a 26-second moment where Bianca Belair lost her title. That was also among one of the worst moments in WWE this year, according to the people that responded to my tweet. And I also think that was one of the worst moments. Here's the thing. I think WWE did a great job at boosting Bianca Belair's momentum up. She is a star. She is the definition of a star when it comes to WWE Superstars. And she was on a wave, honey. The fact is, when Becky came in and took that title from her in 26 seconds, the arena was quiet. You could hear fucking crickets in there. I was no words. I don't even know how to even explain how I felt. I was perplexed. I'm still perplexed because I've read since then that Becky was not supposed to return then. They found out that Sasha was unable to compete. So they were kind of like, oh, okay, let's bring Becky back. I don't think Becky needed to win. I think they could have shown that Bianca's on her game whenever and wherever. You know, it doesn't matter if she's competing against Sasha Banks or she's competing against Becky Lynch. She could get the job done. But they didn't go that route. People were just like, what the just happened? Confusion. How did you feel watching this match, this short match?
So I will go to the ends of the earth for Becky Lynch because I love her so much. And I was so excited to see her back. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been waiting for this moment for Becky to be back. And Becky could win against anybody. Like, I don't care. Like, that's like, I'm going to back her no matter what. But I don't think that even if you were going to give her the title, why couldn't they have a match? Like a good match for this championship? Like Bianca and Sasha had really made this championship huge. And Becky, before she left, had made the championship huge, right? So it was still on a very much high. You didn't need to give it back to Becky. It was an even trade-off for me. It seemed like Becky didn't add anything to the title just because she was back.
Well, I think a lot of people thought if Becky were to have returned, she would have gone to Raw because first off, that's where she was before. And she would have easily plugged into Charlotte and Rhea and Nikki Ash at the time. But we were shocked to see her even go onto the SmackDown brand because that's not where she was at originally. She was on Raw when she gave up her Raw Women's Championship to Asuka and announced that she was pregnant. So to see her come back to the SmackDown brand, it really didn't make any sense to me. Now, obviously, you know, Bianca's on Raw. You have Becky on Raw. They're on the same rosters and they've had matches, but it seems like the opportunity for Bianca to even regain that championship again is kind of by the wayside right now. You have Becky Lynch, who has been facing off against Liv Morgan, who I feel like has been a breakout superstar this year, but Bianca has never had a chance to really get that title back and redeem herself. It's like an unwritten story.
And there are so many women who were in the front and doing very well, and they just got their hype taken away from them. Biggest example, Naomi. What is happening with Naomi? And I do like that you mentioned Liv Morgan because Liv is good and Liv has worked her butt off. And we've seen in so many behind the scenes and so many other documentaries that she has really worked. And from Total Divas, I believe, we learned that she has a big family and she didn't really have much growing up, which is very, very sad because she's like, wow, you know, I'm on the beach and I never really got to go to the beach because my family was like not living very well off.
Right.
So she's doing amazing. And I feel like the fans are really behind her. But then where does that leave Bianca? If we want Liv in the championship story, Bianca didn't even like qualify. Like what? You had a little feud with Becky for a hot second. And then what happened?
I will say with Liv Morgan, like you mentioned and I mentioned, she is a breakout superstar this year. But I think the thing that really intrigues me about Liv Morgan is how connected she is with her fans. I don't think a lot of WWE superstars have this art down, but she does for some reason. And she does such a good job at it. There's a couple accounts on Twitter that, you know, she's grown relationships with these people, but whenever you hear anything about Liv, it's positive. It's never like, oh, she's a bitch in person or she's rude to her fans or something like that. she's always generous and she always reads the room when it comes to her fans. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why she's gotten over so well. If you really go back and you listen to, when she comes out to the ring, how the audience is behind her. And that's not just because she's good in the ring. That's because she actually cares about her fans. And I think, a lot of these new superstars that are coming and they do care about their fans. Don't get me wrong, but to connect with your fans is something completely different. And another person who has this down very well, who may or may not be out the door from WWE, is Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. They also have this down very well. It could be because the NXT community that they have is very small. It's very niche. They are dedicated to going to NXT and watching these superstars, but they genuinely have these relationships with these fans where they feel like they connect with them, or they do connect with them. It's interesting because you look back on when we first started watching wrestling, and now there's some superstars where you're like, I can never see them interacting with their fans like Liv Morgan does, or, Johnny Gargano does, because ego, or they feel like, well, I'm a superstar. I can't be bothered with you peasants, but it's about being real. And I think a lot of WWE superstars could really take a lesson on just being a normal person with your fans. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of creepy out there. Like, there are people at the hotels, there's people, sending mail to people's homes, which is completely inappropriate. You do not know these people like that. But when you have a superstar who just doesn't treat you like a random fan, who sees you at these events and treats you like a normal person, that makes you want to buy their merch or watch their matches or support them on social media. But there's also a boundary. Like, you can't be going to this person's house or pulling up to their hotel expecting an autograph at 2 a.m, or going up to them when they're with their family. I think we just need a course on how to be a respectful wrestling fan when it comes to that.
Yes, 1,000% agree with you. We need courses for people. Before you attend, you need to take like a survey. Like, if you have floor seats, are
orientation?
Yes. Are you putting your mask up? Are you wearing deodorant? Like, there's just certain things that if you're not checking it off, you're not being a good wrestling fan. So take notes, guys.
A lot of people's best and worst moment again this year is the rebrand of NXT. So we know NXT is that black and yellow brand. And we've seen so many superstars come into NXT and either get released or graduate up to that Raw or SmackDown. And you think of NXT and it's like a lot of people thought of it as developmental, but after that developmental phrase was kind of thrown to the side, it really became its own brand. Like, to be honest with you, it was more enjoyable than Raw or SmackDown for a while there. Just recently, NXT has introduced NXT 2.0, which is a spunkier version of NXT. You have bright colors. The set is different. Over half of their roster that was within the original NXT is gone. You have these superstars who are younger in age, who have less training, who are now on the roster trying to build up their name, their credibility. And a lot of people were very hesitant about the NXT rebrand at first. They didn't know what to expect with the intro music of Wale with the bright colors and the smaller set. But it seems like people are starting to warm up to NXT 2.0. We've had Cora Jade, we've had Braun Breaker, who, as we know, he is the son of Rick Steiner and the nephew of Scott Steiner. And we've had Tony D'Angelo, which is a hit on Twitter. But how do you feel about seeing, these superstars that we've watched for years now, like Adam Cole and Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, Johnny Gargano? You have the women as well who are either graduating up to that main roster or leaving. How do you feel about seeing this rebrand? I mean, they're getting rid of the old and bringing in the new.
So recently they had War Games, and the big main event was, of course, like the new school versus the old school. And you had like Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano versus some of the new guys. And I was like, oh my God, like this is so cool. But then afterwards, I thought like, oh man, now it's just going to be the new people, because we kind of saw Gargano give his goodbyes. And Kyle is also very iffy and like on the fence. We don't know if he's going to be there. And I honestly think Tommaso's not going to be around much longer either. So who does that leave that we like really got invested in? Because now I feel like I'm not so much as invested as I was because you have to reinvest your time into new people. Like Cora Jade, I'm completely behind because I've known her from the indies. She had a couple Chicago shows and I think she's from here. So I'm 1,000% a fan of hers and I think she's doing well. And I do think that it's a smart idea for them to get the younger people who they can build up and keep for a very long period. If that's what they're doing, I hope that they wouldn't release them. But I'm very much warming up to it. I am giving it a chance because I'm like, well, it's NXT. I do love NXT and it is different from the main roster. You know, it's just a different feel. And I do feel like they focus a little bit more on wrestling on NXT, but it's just taken me a little bit. So
I would say the same too. Like I've watched a couple episodes, but I mainly keep up on Twitter due to like the time difference. But I'm very captivated by Lash Legend. I feel like she has a gimmick that if I were a professional wrestler, I would want. Like the Wendy Williams type of like, she has the tea. And, you know, she's wrestling in her first match soon on WWE programming. So we'll definitely tune into that. But I do agree with you. I think that as a fan, you really have to readjust your focus when it comes to NXT 2.0 because you have a lot of people that you don't know. You don't know their character, and you have to find those characters that you enjoy to watch or that you don't enjoy to watch. And we had it down for so long with seeing the same faces, the same factions on NXT. And now they've pretty much done like a clean sweep. So now we have a couple familiar faces in there, but mainly everyone is new. I mean, I can't think of anyone that is currently in NXT that has been there for 2 or 3 years other than Tommaso. I can't really think of anyone else. I'm sure there's a handful of people. I mean, Roderick Strong is still there. We know he was in the Undisputed Era. He is the Lone Ranger. But other than that, like off the top of my head, I really can't think. Io Shirai has been there a quick minute, but I can't think of anyone where I'm like, okay, they've been there for, you know, this whole duration. Like, wow, they've stood the test of time.
We shall see if they do hold the test of time because with the way WWE handles things, and a lot of it has been Triple H has been gone. So Triple H was a huge part of NXT, and I know he had a health scare, so which they kept private. We had no idea until after it happened and he got better. But Triple H had a lot of say in NXT, and then we learned that Vince was going to take over a little bit, and Shawn Michaels is still there, but
Shawn doesn't have the pull that Triple H does.
Yes. What can Shawn really do besides just be a fantastic coach who everyone loves? It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I was thinking earlier about if Triple H did not have a health scare, where will we be at with NXT right now? Will we still have that black and gold brand that we loved, or will we have this NXT 2.0? I definitely hope that Triple H, obviously health comes first. I hope that he gets well soon. And if he feels like he wants to be involved in NXT again, I hope that they allow him to. I hope that they don't gatekeep NXT from him because honestly, without him, there's a lot of superstars that I don't think we would have seen in NXT. I don't think Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era altogether would have been such a hit in NXT if it was not for Triple H.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I feel like Triple H really sees talent and he's okay with giving people their time to shine. He's like, you know what? It's my show. I run this. And I feel like that's why he was so good because Triple H was part of one of the most successful tag teams in the WWE in all of wrestling. So he knows what people want. He not only knew how to wrestle, he was very entertaining, which was something that I feel like everyone that he backed had. They were the complete package. And it's something that I feel like we're just going to have to get used to if he's not there.
Before we wrap things up, I also want to talk about some of the alternate programming that WWE has given us this year, the updates on the programming that we had seen from WWE, as well as their whole show of a move to Peacock. So let's start off with some news that happened over the summer. E Network was stated to cancel WWE shows Total Bellas and Total Divas after almost a decade on E programming. So 9 years and 9 seasons of Total Divas and Total Bellas, that's combined. It's just dropped from E. And I will say, as a female who loves women's wrestling, Total Divas and Total Bellas showed us another side of the women. So Total Divas, I feel like, was a little bit more authentic. And I feel like Total Bellas was a little bit more staged and scripted. But at the end of the day, both shows inspired a lot of women to go and watch wrestling, to see what background these women had. Obviously, we knew that they were a part of World Wrestling Entertainment. We saw elements of their in-ring personalities and life, but we also saw their life behind the scenes, them at home with their family, the different stuff that they deal with, going on the road, marriage, babies, stuff like that. Not having this anymore, I think, is an L, because you're losing out on that demographic who may be watching E, whether it's they're watching the Kardashians or E True Hollywood Story or, whatever show Austin Gunn is on now. You're losing that demographic that you would have had if Total Bellas or Total Divas came on after an awards red carpet. People would be like, wait a minute, what is this? She's pretty. What do they do for a living? You're losing that. How do you feel about Total Divas and Total Bellas being canceled?
So I took this as a personal attack.
Definitely.
Because I have been on a full 1 second of Total Bellas. And, as that being my Hall of Fame moment in the WWE, I'm just very upset that I can't watch this anymore. And how unfortunate, because the Bellas really did bring a whole new generation of women, a whole new demographic even of fans to wrestling. I remember going to a Comic-Con where I met them, and the women in front of me were just talking about Total Bellas. They didn't even watch wrestling. Like, they knew the Bella Twins because of Total Bellas. Mm-hmm. And it was just crazy, because I'm like, wow, people know them because of these reality shows. And the reality shows really gave us an insight that was just so helpful in making that connection outside of the wrestling world, because we got to see moments that WWE would have never showed us. I still go back to that moment in Total Divas where we got to see Naomi have her match cut and the women have their matches cut. WrestleManias. And the disappointment and the trouble that Naomi got into for making that glow belt, and all of these backstage moments that you're just like, wow, that's insane. I didn't know that this happened, but I'm glad that they showed it to me. And I feel like that just helped me connect more to the women, which is so invaluable. I feel like WWE doesn't know how beneficial these shows are. They just think, oh, well, it's a reality show, like whatever. But you could be getting these checks.
Right. And I agree with you. I've heard women say, oh my God, Nikki Bella, the one who dated John Cena. Like, John Cena is a WWE superstar. And then they go see that Nikki Bella is a former WWE superstar. Then they start going down the rabbit hole of who else wrestles, who else is together, et cetera, et cetera. And who knows the reasoning behind it? It could have been E that wanted to cancel it. It could have been WWE who wanted to cancel it. From what I remember, I know the ratings were starting to decline. So that could have been a reason as to why they canceled it. But, I think there is an opportunity to recast this entire Total Divas, rename it, since Divas is seen as a no-no term now, and, showcase some of these newer NXT women or these newer main roster women. I would love to see Bianca on something like this. Show us what goes on behind the scenes. She's busy all the time per her Instagram, doing different shoots for magazines. She has sponsorship deals. And Sasha Banks would be another good one, starring in Star Wars, stuff like that. showing those elements of these women's life that they feel comfortable showing, one, but two, that you can relate to, and that people that are watching that might be a casual WWE viewer, or again, someone that just stumbled on the show while watching something else on the network or on Peacock may think, let me look a little bit more into this and see what's going on. So we'll see if they decide to revisit the thought of reality TV in the future. But we did see that they decided to go into their treasure bag in April of this year when they presented WWE's Most Wanted Treasures, along with a series called WWE Biography, which they did have, I think, one or two biography episodes before on A&E, but this Most Wanted Treasures show was interesting. They had a cast. They had Triple H. They had Stephanie. They would bring a legend along. They had Top Dollar, who obviously was released, and they would go to different fans' houses and explore their wrestling collection and try and buy stuff off of them. There were a couple fans that were like, hell no, you are not buying this off of me. I've had it for however long. And then you had some fans who were willing to have WWE buy their stuff that they would then put into their vault, their history vault or museum, so that they would have that item again. But I would have loved to see, again, more women involved on Most Wanted Treasures. We saw Michelle McCool involved with the Undertaker's episode, but bringing in women like Trish Stratus or Lita would have been something so amazing to see, not just the same men that we always see trying to find where their robe was they wore 20 years ago, or their hat that they wore. Or did you watch any episodes of Treasures, first off? And if you did, what were your thoughts on it?
I didn't watch it at all. I was not interested in watching it. And I did see like some images online, but I never, like, it didn't interest me. I was not ready to go find the Undertaker's robe or whoever else was on it. Like, honestly, I'm tired of people bringing back the Undertaker. Let that man rest in peace, please. Leave him be at his house. Michelle McCool, you can bring her back. I thought she was great. And she's great in anything that she does, but didn't interest me at all. And I feel like, what was the reason? Like, for content, I guess, because they were like, oh, well, we're just going to buy it back from this fan. Okay, what about it?
You know, I think the show would have been interesting if they would have kept Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins to have them hosted, because we know that they are very into action figures, stuff like that. But the show was announced, I think, maybe like a month or two right after they were released. And they were making jokes online like, oh, you had the perfect host to host this show, but you released them. I think that would have been more interesting rather than seeing Triple H or Stephanie or Top Dollar go out and find these treasures. I think having superstars who have already built their credibility off of collecting items within the wrestling community would have been amazing. But you know, they did what they had to do with this show. It was interesting as a fan to watch, just to see how much memorabilia people had in their downstairs basement or closet or storage bins, and, you know, how they attain the item. That was interesting to me because I'm nosy, but I could see why it wouldn't be interesting to other fans. When it comes to this biography series, I was not interested in most of the episodes. There were a couple episodes, like the Stone Cold episode, which was the first one that they aired within the series, was very interesting. I love the Bret Hart episode. Mick Foley's episode was interesting as well, but WWE loves to focus on the same legends all the time. We always see the Ultimate Warrior. We always see Macho Man Randy Savage. And yes, they've done great work within WWE, WWF, WCW, wherever they were. But I would love to see individuals that have not been discussed all the time spotlighted in these episodes. Bam Bam Bigelow, the Junkyard Dog, just to name a few. Superstars that we know are in WWF, WWE history that we haven't heard their backstory. And who knows what the specifics are. Maybe their family doesn't want a series or an episode done on them or whatever. But as a fan, I would like to see individuals that have not been spotlighted before given this proper spotlight. And, you know, I love me some Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart, but they are always spotlighted. Let's spotlight some other legends. Go through your WWE Hall of Fame list and show us some legends that we have not seen on a platform like this before. Introduce us to them.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. There's so many other people. and you can use people who are still on the roster. Let me know about Rey Mysterio. Like, that man has been everywhere. Like, tell me about him, you know? And even people who have been on commentary before, like, they could definitely do something with Renee Young. Like, she was the first woman to do commentary, and they just like, oh, okay, like whatever. But there's so much history there. Lillian Garcia, give us some backing.
Also you look at the list and there's no women involved here, and that bothered me too. And I know a lot of people they'll be like, well, Lo, you are a woman that likes wrestling, so you always say that women should be spotlighted, but I do not care what I am. I stand firm in this. If you have a list of 8 men, why is there at least not 2 women on this list? Why was China not involved? Why was Miss Elizabeth not involved? You had Macho Man Randy Savage. You could have followed up the episode with a whole episode on Miss Elizabeth. I know the topic of Nancy Benoit is a little bit touchy, but spotlight woman. You know, she had a great career. Why not spotlight her? There's all of these different women and other legends that are right there for them to dive into. And they just kind of are like, okay, we'll go with Macho Man again.
They're like, who's over there? Oh, I like that hat. Undertaker, you're in.
No, we like hearing about these superstars. Don't get me wrong. We like to hear about Shawn Michaels. We like to hear about Bret Hart, Mick Foley, etc. But let's focus on the women. Do you know how good a China special would have been? Those ratings probably would have been out the roof.
A fumble,
an L. Finally, we know that the WWE Network is no longer with us. We are now in the Peacock times. WWE fully transitioned to the Peacock streaming app. So WWE Network is no longer here. We're stuck with Peacock now. And we're months in. Peacock is still not synced up properly. You're missing stuff on the app. It's a hot mess. They're trying, though. But what I do notice is that we are not getting the exclusive content that we used to get. I've not seen a 365, a 24 special in 7 years, and I feel like we need that. They've started kind of mingling stuff back in. You see episodes of Broken Skull sessions with Stone Cold and different WWE superstars that he's brought in, but that programming that we had on the network, the specialized programming, whether it was Ride Along or all the other different shows, they're not there anymore. No, there's no new episodes being filmed. And I feel like we're missing something when it comes to Peacock. Like, yeah, WWE has their own section on the app. That's great. It's user friendly when it comes to that. But where is the content that we were getting on the WWE Network?
Exactly. Where is all my ride-alongs? Where are all the prank shows that, you know, were still up? I can't find anything. It takes me forever to even load up a pay-per-view when I'm watching it because it's just so difficult. And it's a different feed on your phone than it is on your TV. And we
don't try and live tweet about it, or don't try and have a group chat about it, because you have someone that is still in the first match and you're on the last one, because Peacock streaming is not consistent on anyone's platform.
You and I have to coordinate, like, oh, what part are you on? Are you on the Charlotte promo yet? Because they haven't even rung the bell for me. Like, what is happening? And I just, you know what? I didn't appreciate WWE Network enough when I had it. And we didn't know what we had until it was gone, because Peacock is so like, even for their regular programming, it's a hot mess. It's not organized, and it's just bad. It's so bad.
I honestly hope that in the new year they get it together, because Peacock it's a streaming app. It's like Netflix, it's like Hulu. So they have the capabilities to provide like a user-friendly experience when you're watching a live pay-per-view or anything like that. But, you know, there needs to be a search option. It needs to be a little bit more user-friendly when you're trying to dig through stuff and find stuff. I thought the WWE Network, sometimes it was a little bit laggy, but it was easy to go in and search up pay-per-views or find something specific that you were looking for. When it comes to Peacock, it's not that easy. So I'm hoping that things get better, and I'm hoping that, you know, we get some new episodes of some of the shows that were previously on WWE Network that we enjoyed. I mean, trust me, we are not the only fans that are like, where are our new shows? Where is the content? I just saw someone post the other day, like, when's the last time they did a 365? The fans are missing it. You're losing a payday by not having this on the network.
Exactly. And something that WWE Network did right was they had special playlists of feuds and storylines. I remember there was a Trish and Lita playlist, and I was like, this is it. I'm watching this one. And you literally watched it for hours, and you could pause. This is the thing. You cannot pause on Peacock, and it's so irritating. Like, I could pause if I was watching on my laptop, but if I was watching on my TV, you couldn't. And I'm just like, please, just the features need to line up. I miss what it had. Why was it so difficult to transfer the content from one place to the other? Is WWE going to have something and they're just going to sell it in the future? Do you think they're going to be like, DVDs are coming back and we're going to sell all this stuff in DVDs? Could you imagine?
Well, I actually saw an article the other day that said WWE going into 2022 may not even print DVDs anymore of their pay-per-views. So I don't even think that would be an option. I think at this point, they really want to focus on their fans solely getting their pay-per-views or their shows on a digital platform, which would be Peacock. I mean, that's taking away from people that, you know, older individuals who may not want to be tech savvy and just go buy that DVD, or little kids who their parents don't want to pay $10 for them to watch WWE programming on Peacock, who just feel like it's easier to just go buy the DVD, or even collectors who enjoy collecting the DVDs. They don't get that option anymore. So again, fumbling the bag, that's money that you would have had in your pocket.
Please, that network had such a hold on me. I remember I was at Walmart one time and I saw the Wrestlemania DVD and it was like $14. And in my head, I'm like, $14? I can't believe they're charging this. At the WWE Network is only $9.99 a month. Like, you could watch that I don't know how many times. And in my head, I'm like, they got me. They got me.
Well, remember when you would buy pay-per-views and they would be like $60?
Wild.
Yes. And now we're paying $10 a month to watch unlimited stuff. Life comes at you fast, especially as a wrestling fan. Overall, Iridian, how would you say this year was in WWE? And do you plan to continue watching the programming next year, even though, you know, there's been a handful of bad moments this year? There's been a lot of good moments. Do you plan on still watching the same amount you do now? Do you plan on watching less, more? What are your thoughts?
So the way that I've been watching WWE right now has been very limited. I focused on NXT and then it started changing to NXT 2.0, and it doesn't feel the same for me. And I don't know if it's because I don't have that same connection because all of my favorite wrestlers are gone. It's just weird, and I'm giving it a chance. Like, I keep watching it, but it's just like storylines that were there have dwindled away. So it's very difficult for me to watch NXT 2.0. I forever watch SmackDown because I feel like SmackDown is the top show. I would hope that Monday Night Raw goes back to being 2 hours, because it's that third hour that really kills me. And I'm just like, oh my God, now you're just trying to make up time. Like, why can't you just have good matches within the 2 hours? I would hope that they limit that. I want John Cena to come back, but I always want John Cena to come back. So I would hope that he's back for WrestleMania when we are
I was reading your mind because I knew you were going to say that.
We think alike. So, you know, for Mania, I would hope that we get maybe even The Rock. So I need buildups. I need good buildups and no more releases. That's what I need.
Thank you so much, Iridian, for joining me. It has been a crazy 2021, and we will see what happens in 2022. Where can the people keep up with you and the Wrestfriends Podcast?
You can find me and all of my links on Wrestfriends on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Make sure you guys head over to YouTube, Wrestfriends, and subscribe. And also listen to the Wrestfriends Podcast, the same place that you listen to Wrestling Winedown. All of the amazing platforms. We have Spotify, iTunes. Literally, we are everywhere. You can buy Wrestfriends merch on whatamaneuver.net. And those links are also on our link tree that are on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wrestling Winedown. You can find all of our other episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you listen to your podcast. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at WWDCAST. Let us know what you thought about the episode. What was your favorite part? Until next time, enjoy your wine and, of course, enjoy your wrestling. Cheers!